Okay, Kevin Can Fuck Himself is a dark comedy that alternates between traditional multi-camera sitcom and single-camera drama. Set in Worcester, Massachusetts, the series follows the journey of Allison McRoberts, a stereotypically smart and beautiful sitcom wife, who is married to Kevin, a husky, self-centered man-child who is clearly punching above his weight. After making a dark discovery, Allison teams up with neighbor Patty O'Connor as she attempts to escape the confines of her life and take control of her fate. This, of course, is the synopsis of the show Kevin Can Fuck Himself. It's a show that was originally aired on AMC Network. It ran from June 20th, 2021 to October 10th, 2022. It is only 2 seasons long, and each season has 8 episodes. So, we just recently, we watched it, we binge watched it, and so now I'm interested. Was the show what you imagined it would be? Like, when you guys went in and you started watching it, was it what you imagined it would be?
No, I honestly thought it would be something else. I did think from the title alone, I thought like, okay, it's gonna be mostly comedy about this guy who, I guess like this group kind of hates, but it's like lovable and funny or something like that. It was nothing like that at all. The character was completely different, and you do end up growing to hate him. And that show definitely makes you think and question, like, huh? Like so many things that you've seen before as a child growing up.
For me, I didn't really know what I was walking into. You kind of just like brought it up to me and was like, hey, like, it's kind of like a comedy, but it's not a comedy, and I was like, I'm intrigued. So I didn't know what to expect, but I mean, it was a happy surprise.
Right. Well, when I first heard of the show, I heard from it from a TikTok, and just the way that it explained it, it gave like a short little of what it was, and it intrigued me enough. And this was about last year. I got IMC just so I could start watching the show. I only saw like half of the first episode. I liked it, but it was one of those like, I have to share with, I can't watch this by myself. And we just never got around to doing it until now that I saw it. I forgot about it really until now that I saw that it was on Netflix, and I was like, oh my god, yes, this is it's a sign. And I told you ladies about it. I started watching it. So I kind of knew a little bit what it was about, but it's definitely way better than what I imagined it was going to be. And that hasn't happened to me for a show in a long time. But yeah, so that was definitely my first, I guess, impression of the show. And I highly recommend for people to go watch it. We are going to talk about spoilers here, but so if you don't want to hear about the spoilers, go watch the show. Go watch the show and listen to us, join the conversation. But yeah, so what did you like about the show?
I would have to say both Allison's and Patty's growth separately and together. Like, I love seeing how they both evolved from the first episode of Patty trying to be, like one of the dudes, one of the bros, whatever, to all of a sudden, like, helping Allison out of a tough jam to, like, becoming, like, friends and possibly something more towards the end. And Allison, the punchline wife, all of a sudden becoming her own independent person, but by also like developing and making a friendship, an unexpected one that she never thought she would get.
Yeah, I really like that. Oh god, but the friendship between them both was kind of like awkward at times. But towards the end, it's like it makes sense, right?
It strangely does, yeah, because I think in a way they were both like almost in similar situations. but not really. Like, they both felt stuck taking care of somebody. In this case, Patty was with her brother Neil, but like she felt like a family obligation. Unlike Allison, she felt stuck because like, oh, it's a marriage she got into without really knowing about Kevin all that much.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. What about you, Noodles?
Yeah, I like that it's very relatable, and I agree the character development in this one is just, it's really good. Even the acting and everything, I enjoyed it. Like, I agree. I feel like I hadn't had a real good show that I was like looking forward to seeing in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that, the character development and
Well, I really like first of all, the aesthetic of it, right? I think it's brilliant how they were able to capture the sitcom version of how Kevin in his diluted mind sees the world. And everyone who's around him kind of gets sucked into that, and they show it by the visual, right? The visualization of the sitcom way, right? The camera.
definitely.
And then when it's like Allison's view, and everybody, once they come out of Kevin's little circle, it's such a stark difference, right? It's almost jarring at the beginning when you're not used to it, because you go from a nice sitcom vibe, think, Full House type of thing, and then boom, it takes you right into like her reality, which is almost like, Law and Order, SVU type of thing, I really love how they did that. I feel that by doing that, us as the audience, like, we're brought along the ride because of that.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it, So I really love that. And then the way they did with also where you see, I like the character of Allison. Like, obviously she's my favorite, and the reason for it is that she's a flawed character. She's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That, she's not a goody. She's not this victim either. Like, she's not this person. Like, it's a real character. Like, you meet someone like her. You could see that. And that's okay, because that's okay to not be perfect. That's okay. There is no such thing as a perfect victim, because the world is not perfect. We're not all perfect. So I like that. And yeah, the character development, I love that in this show with just 2 seasons, short seasons too, the characters, you could see the development between them. So, and as the show went on, it started off kind of like lighthearted and because we were all kind of drawn into Kevin's world. But as the show progressed, it got kind of like, through her eyes, and it got uglier and uglier until the very last frame, But I'm not uglier as in like the story was uglier. No, just like the visual, and you could actually relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I liked about it. How did you guys feel about that? Like how they would transition between the camera angles and stuff?
In the beginning, I found it kind of confusing a little at times. Like, I admit, slightly annoying, but the more I kept seeing it, the more I wanted to see it through Allison's point of view more, because I think at some point with Kevin's, it just looked far too bright and too goofy. And with hers, it's like, you could see the reality of it, like the humanness in it and the flaws, and like how reality really is. Like, yeah, and like how you also see like how Patty, Neil, his dad, like how eventually they all start to like get sick and tired of pretending along in his world too.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I do kind of wish we did see the dad's in his point of view, like how we did with Neola a few times towards the second season. At least once, you know? But again, knowing like they all were like getting out of that, I think it's like, no, yeah, like it's like it gives the whole like it's okay to be in your own little world every now and then, just don't let it become your main world, you know? You can't just keep going on the delusion, otherwise when the reality does catch up, and it will catch up eventually, like how it did with Kevin in the end too, it crashes hard. And if you're not prepared, you're not ready, you could have a very bad reaction to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked how they did it. It was very, because the show was more to like bring a light of those comedy shows that are basically like that, where it's the goofy husband and the nagging wife. So it was really interesting because it gave us the perspective of the wife instead of just the husband. And yeah, like it's one of those, it's just very relatable. Even like I agree, like even the character of Allison, like you're right, how many times do we see someone like her, but it's one of those, like, you don't know what's going behind closed doors, and clearly like Kevin was just, it was all about him, it was his world, so any little wrong thing and it was whatever to him. If it didn't affect him, it didn't matter.
No, yeah, until like it does, like how Allison pointed it out to Sam, I believe, that like, oh, if she introduces the problem as Kevin's problem, then he will try to do everything he can to fix it.
Well, and then, let's just, say what it is, really. So, in the show, the character of Kevin, he's, like you said, the husband, he's a narcissist. He's very narcissistic, and it's so weird because they've been married for 15 years. And it seems like they kind of were all around each other's world-ish, right? But I guess because Patty does mention that she knew her, like they knew each other back in high school. But then her and Kevin, they meet and everything. But like Kevin is like this big, loud guy, right? He's this big, loud guy who it's all about him. And it's so crazy to see, and I love that how they portrayed this, like that he draws people into his world for him, it's all about him. And he makes them, we talked about this last time, how, like why did these people stick around? Well, because at the end of the day, because the way Kevin is so loud and obnoxious, a lot of times he gets his way, but it's not because he's smart, because this guy is not smart. I guess you could say he's smart in another way. And these people, like his best friend Neil, who Kevin treats horrible, and Patty, same thing, she went along for it for 15 years, or more, probably, but 15 years is how long Kevin and Allison have been married. But she went along with it, and she went along with it, but I feel it's because it's just the prestige of like, oh, we're with Kevin, and because Kevin would get shit done. But most people knew that he was stupid and how he was. They would just go along with it because he's like this loud, obnoxious man.
Yeah, it's one of those, if you said no to him, he knew how to do it so that you would end up saying yes at the end.
Right.
He was a manipulator, honestly. Like, he made it sound it'd be awesome for them to be near him.
Right. And then also, like, he would do a lot of illegal stuff. And not even care about it. Like, not bat an eye.
No, yeah, like how he said, like how he set their neighbor's lawn on fire, even though like that was completely and utterly illegal to do. And how he said, oh, like I also stole one of their shirts that was drying outside.
What's so wonderful about the show, right, is the fact that, like we said, as there's character development and then they show it by, well, yeah, when people kind of pop out of his world and start seeing the person that Kevin actually is. I feel like this show kind of, and it's so weird because they didn't sugarcoat a lot of things, but I feel like it was kind of like alluding to maybe there was even like physical abuse. You know, there is definitely mental abuse, there is definitely emotional abuse, but I feel like there was physical abuse, and I think, and because every time that people were finding out, when they would find out that, oh, Allison's trying to kill him, they were like, we get it. And that's the sad part, because again, I feel like in real life, a lot of the times that's how it is. I feel like people just turned a blind eye. When they would find out that she, you know, she was against Kevin, and she would even say, like, I know, you know, why kill him and why not just get a divorce? And most people in the show would be like, no, we get it. Like, we get it.
No, yeah, like for instance, like I think like her aunt, like
Yes.
she's kind of married, I guess, like almost someone like it sounds somewhat similar to Kevin. She tries to leave. He literally tracks her down and brings her back. I mean, yes, she stayed in a motel for like a week, but in the end, she went back to the house and it's like, it's better just to keep living like this because to her, I think like she got broken down for so long, like to the point she's like, I don't want to die alone. And I think that's just like very sad, like to the point that you think that, oh, like it's better to be in that situation than to be alone. Which honestly, it's like it is true. You can either end up one or the other. You end up being stuck in it, or you end up finding enough strength and hopefully a support, even from just one person. From like, for instance, like Patty, who decided, okay, yeah, I'll help you out. You know, just because like at first like she was accidentally roped into it, but then later on, as she started to get to know Allison more, starting to see more of Ken's bullshit, she's like, okay, no, yeah, I have to help her, or else something might happen to her. And to me, I think like that's what I think definitely gave Allison more strength, because like how she even told her one time, like if she thinks about it for too long by herself, she'll talk herself out of it.
But see, that's conditioning. Like, I agree. I think there had to have been more than just the emotional and mental abuse, because she continued saying like that she couldn't, because she couldn't just divorce him because he would track her down. And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm pretty sure there was a moment in time where maybe she thought about it, but then maybe something happened where he was like, no, you're not. And she was like, oh yeah, you're right, I'm not. And then just hasn't since.
Yeah.
In the beginning of all of it, like, she held on to her own little fantasy of this image of them like growing old together, basically, and but that gets shattered for her after so long. That's what brought her up to this point, basically.
Yeah, because she had dreams. Like, everybody would say, like, oh, in high school, you know, and then she was going to go to college. Like, she was involved in high school. It seemed like she was on the right track until, you know, she married Kevin. And because I remember you had said about that incident too, with how she had a good job before and he ruined it for her.
No, yeah, like how she reminded Patty, I think the first time when they went go by themselves on like on a road trip. I'm doing air quotes here. And because I think when she tells Patty, like, yeah, like why she wanted them, because she was tricking her, like, oh, they're for myself, for my back pain, whatever. And Patty was getting annoyed, and then she tells her, like, no, yeah, straight up, like, I'm gonna kill him. And she tries to first talk her out of it, and it's like she ends up telling her, like, oh, like, it always has to be his way. or no way, and like how she didn't like working at the liquor store with her aunt because it wasn't what she wanted, and she sees it as a dead end job. And like she said how she liked her first job before, where I forgot what it was, but she said like, you know, like it was a good job. It was, from what it sounded like, it was high paying and everything. But Kevin didn't like it because like she wasn't spending much time for him. She wasn't as beck and call. And he made up this whole scenario in his head that her 60-year-old boss and her, who was married and probably had grown ass kids already married themselves, that they were having an affair. And you know, he puts sugar in the gas. He tears up the tires, and like he laughs about it, boasting it to the boss's face. I guess threatening, saying like if she's still there, like he'll do worse. And no, yeah, like she's like, she was, you know, told to leave.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I loved right there with Patty, like in her face, like she kind of realized thinking back, because like she does kind of say like, well, looked funny, and then Allison's like, okay, yeah, well, funny for you guys, but what about me? And
Right.
you do see it on Patty's face where she does think about it for a moment and realize just how terrible it was. And she does apologize to her in the end, like saying, I'm sorry, like I didn't realize how much that actually meant to you.
Right. I feel also like it's funny, right? Because when we first started watching it, it starts off with the comedy aspect of it, you know, the sitcom camera, like, and I felt like this is familiar, like, oh, ha ha, like I thought it was gonna be like a funny take of them making fun of like sitcoms, because that is the really freaky thing, right? How it actually does. They follow the same formula of so many other sitcoms, especially the ones in the 90s and early 2000s. That was literally the formula. You know, this guy, you know, guy, and this beautiful wife who's way out of his league. Not just because of the looks, but because of the way the guys are always so goofy. They have this like, you know, okay job, and the wife is always like successful, like she has a, I don't know, it's just so mismatched. And yet the wife is always the butt of the joke.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, TV, movies, they have shaped us as a society for so long. They continue to do so. And this is what it just, you know, it just blows my mind, because I think like this is the type of stuff that we grew up with. I grew up with watching that dynamic. And just, it makes me sad. It makes me sad to see how it was always one-sided, one version, right? We would see that it's really from the male's perspective, and you know, that type of male, because I'm not saying that all men are like this. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that stereotype of a man, because they do exist. And then it was put in our faces, and several different comedies and shows and movies, and you know, it was put in our faces. And it is programming. It is, I mean, I see it, I've lived it, I've seen it, where, you know, it's kind of like, oh, that's acceptable. And then the men have like these really high standards, right, of a wife. Really, I feel that this isn't part because of that. Because of shows that this show is referencing, right? At least I don't know. That's my opinion.
No, yeah, I agree.
I agree. No, yeah.
Like they follow the same format, and that's how it's through Kevin's point of view, and that's when they follow it. But when it's not, when Kevin isn't around, it isn't in that formula, unless you're with his friends. But we've said it that they get like a dose of reality. And then the whole scene is totally different. So it's
Right.
one of those, like, that format is better fitted for Kevin because it suits Kevin, you know?
Yeah.
No, yeah, and like it is different. Like when you're a kid, like it's haha, you don't know any better. But as you get older and you start seeing it, no, yeah, you start seeing like, okay, like this isn't very healthy, very normal. Granted, I think some sitcoms do it differently. Like I do, don't get me wrong, I do see some couples in some of the sitcoms where they actually do seem to work and not exactly like making fun of one or the other, but like making fun of each other together. And they're like, oh yeah, like they'll even say it at times like, oh yeah, we're not perfect, but we're working it, we're working through it and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But then there are the other sitcoms where it's just like, oh, it's not my fault, it's my partner's fault. Like they just
And
blame it
then
on them.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only, God, movies. I'm a huge Adam Sandler fan. I like his movies. I like his comedy, and I feel he follows this formula. Now, yes, looking back, we've talked about this. I feel like, a lot of stuff has not aged well, and
Mhm.
I've heard this across all social platforms where people, we're looking back to what we used to watch or the music we used to listen to, and we are like, ugh, we were really, dancing to that, or we were really, watching this. They really said that, it is very cringe. And I feel that way with Adam Sandler, like I love, again, I loved all his movies. I love all his movies. But I also feel I have seen him change a little bit on his movies as well. Whether it's just because of the times or whether it's because now, his daughters are older too, and I feel that that also changes a person as well. Because
Mm-hmm.
we were saying, like, I wonder what the actors of those shows that this show is emulating, shows like, and I'm just gonna say, Everybody Loves Raymond, shows like The King of Queens. I wonder if the writers or the actors, as they look back and think, you know, that wasn't, no, like, that wasn't right.
I'm pretty
Mm,
sure some of them do, because we've heard of the actors or actresses who said, like, oh, they regret this role or that role or whatever, for whatever reason or another.
oh
I would
yeah.
hope that some of them, like, learned and grew up and, like, look back in those roles and aren't proud of what they've created. Like, yes, like, they lasted for so long, because, I mean, clearly they had an audience. But, like, it's not something to be proud of, honestly. That's, like,
Hmm.
it's not realistic. It's not realistic.
Mhm.
Well, and then also let's talk about the enablers, the people around them, right? Because, and I guess the people around them and the character development that they did, because that's, again, we all mentioned it at the beginning, that's one of the things that we loved about the series, right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, you know, Patty, who I feel Patty was the first one that kind of like got broken out of that illusion, right?
Mhm.
At the
Yeah, like she
beginning,
she even admits to us, and I think like on the second, third episode that like when she goes outside to smoke, she's like, okay, yeah, I see it. He is an ass.
right. At the beginning, I didn't like her because
Mm-hmm.
of, again, it was very familiar. I was like, a woman putting another woman down, and the way that it was done too, like it was. ugh, it was gross. So I didn't like that. I didn't like her because I was like, why would she be okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then as the series, went on and she explains the why, and you kind of see the why too. I do understand, you know, because that was the world, that was her world, just kind of like Allison too, and I guess in Patty, she thought might as well try to be one of the boys and go along with it than be treated like Allison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she kind of like was a little bit because like when they do a flashback again, like towards the end of the second season, like it does sound like they were kind of somewhat treating her the same way. Because like when they first meet Allison, like they're like, oh, like a woman who likes beer, and she's like, hey, and they're all
Right,
saying like how like oh like like we haven't had a woman to hang out with, and again it's like they're making fun of her and making it sound like she isn't a woman.
right.
And my whole thing is like, okay, yeah, that is sad for her, but also too like with her brother Neil, like why the I still hate him. I still hate him to this right now, to this day, because
Yeah.
yes, he did got broken out of it quite violently, might add, but he refused to still change his attitude. If anything, he got worse. He still blamed Allison, even though like he started seeing more of Kevin's bullshit, and when they were reminded of like, oh, like how they said like the one time when Kevin accidentally ripped off, no, not ripped off, chopped off one of his toes, and he
Yeah.
threw it over the fence into Patty's backyard instead of putting it in ice and taking it to the hospital to see if they could reattach it.
Yeah.
And again, when he also was accused of stealing something from Kevin, and then he actually questions him like, why would you think that? Like, I'm your friend, like I've been with you this whole time. And then Kevin just straight up saying like, well, because you're jealous of me, because I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, like I don't like Neil. Like he's not a very good friend. He's not a very good person, and he's definitely not a good brother.
No.
Well, I was gonna say, I think Patty really grew on me throughout the first season, I think. Because it was one of those, like, I don't think she was really ever in his world. Like, when she was around him, like, yes, she was in it, but I don't really remember, like, if she wasn't around the boys, she wasn't in the world. Like, she had already known. I think she was just kind of, like Mom said, that she was like, it's better being one of the boys instead of being treated like Allison.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until she gave Allison a chance to finally hear her out that she was like, oh man, like, I didn't realize just how terrible it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or just how bad it was. Because maybe it was one of those, she was so like, as long as I'm not like that, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
But slowly, and yeah, everyone around him slowly figures it out and gets out of it. Although I will say, the only one that I saw that didn't leave Kevin's world was his dad.
Yes, I wanted to
Like,
ask you guys about that.
yeah, because like, he left, but he didn't, like, the world never changed.
For him.
Yeah. So I thought that that was interesting.
Well, I thought, I wondered about that too. Because I was waiting for that moment. I was waiting for the dad, to change too. And when it didn't happen, I was kind of like, huh. And I had forgotten to ask you what you all thought about that. Because the way that I thought, well, maybe because that's his son. And as a parent, you don't want to see what your son has done, how he is, so I think for the dad also to maybe for the dad to see how the son has become, he would have to also reflect on himself. Like, well, why is my son this way? And I don't think that the dad ever wanted. He preferred to just leave and not, than see it. That's what I thought. But I also like what you said, Riddles, about that. So
I agree. I think that it's not just Kevin's world that was. I think it was also the dad's. Because I don't think... I'm trying to remember if there's scenes when he's out of it.
no, there wasn't.
No, I think it wasn't until, like, again, like, towards the end of the second season where, again, like, he is starting to get upset with Kevin a bit more. I think it's, like, mostly around the time when he gets his new girlfriend. And Kevin is, like, purposely trying to sabotage it to try to get him with Diane, Allison's aunt, to get back the 60% off beer.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, yeah, that's kind of, messed up. Okay, yes, like, the girlfriend had a weird laugh. But, I don't know. I go, but, like, that's his dad. He could date whoever he wants. And also the fact, too, like, when he's packing and leaving, like, he starts treating him at the end because Neil's not around to do that. And then when he tells him, like, oh, I'm moving to Florida, and again, Kevin gets upset, and then he's like, okay, I'll see you there in alternatives in the spring and summer. And, like, how the dad just straight up said, like, do you honestly think I'm going to tell you where our address is? And he just leaves. And
Yeah.
Tima's like, oh, okay, like, I think he did. I agree with Mom, like, how he did somewhat was like, okay, yeah, I'm tired of him right now. But, like, yeah, the reason I think he didn't also break out of it is, like, how Mom said, like, for him to be like, oh, like, how did he end up like this, would definitely have to question, like, the way he possibly not only raised him, but the things of the way he taught him.
Right, and how. Well, how did he turn out this way? Not that the dad is completely to blame, because Kevin's a grown-ass man. We can change, that we don't have to be a certain way for the rest of our life.
Oh, yeah.
But I know, Noodles, you had said the other day that because you also feel that the dad wasn't his own, like, because the dad was the same.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it kind of goes with what you two are saying. Like, this could have been a learned trait, but it could also, he could distort his world however he wanted to.
Yeah.
When the dad is shown leaving, it's because he tells him, like, you're taking advantage. Like, he sees what's going on, and he's like, I'm not having any part of this. Like, if you can't pull your weight, like, I'm gonna get my things and leave. And Kevin didn't take it seriously, so Dad knew, like, if I stay, it's gonna continue. So that's why he left. But that didn't mean that he was in his own little bubble. Because he could, maybe the dad, like, kind of learned how to, like, if I want my world to stay like this, all colorful and nice and giddy, I have to give a little bit. Because he seems fine, like, helping out.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't mind. And when it came to his girlfriend, like, he was the same. Like, he wanted her to be comfortable, and he did what he could, to keep her happy.
Well, another thing that I was thinking as we were talking about this, at the beginning, all his really, it seemed like, yes, it hurt. A lot of, like, what Kevin would do would hurt Neil, but it seemed like the worst one that got it was Allison. And everyone else was okay with that for that reason, because as long as it didn't affect them, But when Allison hopped out of that bubble and started wanting to do something about it and slowly pulling them out, whether she wanted to or not, it was just happening, organically. And then, because, look, Patty was out, when Allison left, right? So now who was he going to pick on? Okay, and then Patty left, and I feel like that's why things got worse also with Kevin the way he was treating Neil and the dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel maybe that's also what, because that's when, you know, the Neil started seeing it.
Well, yeah, because at the beginning, Kevin had all this time because Allison would pick up the slack, and she became the punching bag, and everyone was just kind of hiding behind it. Now, you're right. Like once she left, the dominoes started falling over one by one, and of course, the next one to go was Patty because she was the only other female that was taking. So they didn't even treat her that well in the beginning either. Like,
No.
he was the butt of a lot of jokes too, but it was one of those like, oh, you know, we're joking, bro. Like, you're part of the boys. Like, you don't get hurt. But it got to the point where like they even kicked her out of the group.
Yeah. Because of that. Because they saw, you know, that she really wasn't taking it as much.
Exactly.
So
Like, she
what?
did call them out, but then they were like, well, since you don't want to play along, like, get out.
Yeah. And then, like you were saying about Neil, you're right. To me, that's like I'm split, you know. I kind of like it's one of those characters that you hate to love because he played the goofy friend, right? The goofy best friend, the ride and die.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you hear, like, when as it goes on and you see the backstory, it's really sad. Like, it is so sad the way Neil is, and then his rude awakening to it all. But I also agree with Musica that, you know, he got worse and worse. But I also feel that, I don't know, I think that might have been like his defense mechanism. It's not to excuse him or anything, again, because he's a grown-ass man. But I feel like he was literally like a child who just found out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. So he was just mad. And of course he was going to be mad at Allison because Allison had been the punching bag for so long. So I feel like of course he was going to be mad at her, you know? But the character that I didn't like out of all of them was Tammy. And it sucks because I liked actually the character of Tammy. I just didn't like, because since she didn't like Allison, and it just felt like, I mean, they're really good actresses because they played the parts beautifully, but I just didn't, you know, I was like, okay, when is Tammy leaving? When is Tammy leaving and give Allison and Patty their alone time? Was there, like, who did you guys not like? Or what did you not like about the show, if anything? Because it sounds like we loved it. Was it just Neil for you?
It was Neil and Kevin the most for me, yeah. Like, I didn't like any
Kevin
of them.
for sure.
And I think we're also maybe hate Neil the absolute most. Because, no, yeah, like, there were times I found him mostly annoying. Because, again, like, he's the little idiot, like you said. But I think what definitely turned it to me was when he tried to choke Allison out. Like,
oh my god, yes.
That turned it to me, because it's like, I honestly did think for a second there that, they're going to show Kevin walking in or something, you know?
Yeah.
But I do love how in the end it was Patty, like, she decided to come back and, like, work it out with Allison, and she sees her brother doing that, and instead of, like, I don't know, freezing right there, or, like, trying to, like, dismiss it or whatever, she steps in action, hits him over the head with the bottle, and straight up protects Allison.
I love that. I know. I was like, we all gasped, like, holy shit.
You didn't see it coming. Very, very good. That one was good. For me, I didn't like the character of Sam.
Sam? Oh, Sam! What?
Really?
Why?
I just...
What did you not like? No, now we have to dissect this. What exactly did you not like about Sam?
I don't like that he was literally just there using Allison. Like, yes, she was using him too, but it's one of those, he knew the situation, took full advantage, and then every time that she would like turn around and say no, he would get upset and throw a tantrum, and then they'd go back and, you know, kiss and make up, and then they would continue again. Like, it was just, I didn't like that. Like, I was just kind of like, yeah, that just.
I honestly thought he was gonna be the hero in the beginning.
Yeah, me too. And I'm glad that that's not how it was.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I hadn't seen it that way, so that makes sense. I hadn't seen it that way. Because... No, go ahead.
Sorry, just like another little thing to sprinkle on that was the fact that he even admitted to Allison, like, because one of the fights that they had was like, oh, he thought that he was better than Kevin. And Allison was like, I'm not. And, like, at first I was kind of like, well, that's kind of like a dick thing to say, because she's been putting Kevin down this whole time, you know, but, like, we all know that that's true, but still, like, another person that is hearing the same thing doesn't want to be compared. But
right.
then, later down more, like, he kind of turns around and says, like, that, like, he thinks, like, that he is like Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I guess he kind of, like, realizes his flaws and is going to change or work to change or whatever. But it's still, like, I was like, that's the reason. I was like, because, yeah, like, he was playing hero for Listen, but then she would realize, like, no, this is wrong. But she was still in a vulnerable state where she wasn't making the best judgment. And it sounds like when she's around Sam, she never makes the best judgment either. Like, it's the same. So, I don't know. I was just like, yeah, that wasn't.
You know, what if, oh my god, this show is brilliant. This is why I love having these kinds of conversations, because, okay, so Sam, first, you, like, I see your point now, you're right, but I hadn't seen it, because people like Sam, who are, kind of, you're right, are low-key also narcissists, and I mean, I don't know, what else was Kevin? Because, I mean, narcissist for sure. I don't know.
I would say, narcissist, manipulator, and a bit of a...
Oh, definitely manipulator.
I had another word. Shit.
Okay. Well, even just with those two, right? And I guess Sam was the same. But it gives you the two views of the extreme, because there are people like Kevin, and then there's people like Sam. And I feel that most are people like Sam.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe some of them don't even know, like Sam.
Yeah, because I don't think he himself thought to be the same as Kevin until Kevin was trying to give him advice on how to save his marriage. And when he pointed out the things, I was like, oh, is that what you do for your wife? Or is that how you correct her too? And he's like, well, yeah, kind of. It's like, fuck, have I been? And then he tells him to go even further from it. And he's like, whoa, okay, hold on, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between them two. Like, he, again, like, that obviously also does show to Kevin too that, like, he knows what he's doing is messed up. But the fact he's given him more ideas of how to twist it a bit more further to make his wife feel that, oh no, it's her fault, oh no, it's her obligation, oh no, like, she's the one going crazy. And Sam realizing that that's fucked up, I think that's the difference. Like, Kevin's okay to do that, and Sam realizes, like, okay, maybe this isn't so very good, especially if this crazy asshole is telling me to do that.
Right. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying, like, that's why it's so brilliant, because, again, I feel like Kevin, and throughout the whole show, he's so over the top, right? And so we're trained to see that, but we don't normally see that. We don't normally interact with that kind of person. Only the ones that interact with that kind of person that is so over the top to that level are the ones closest to them, like in this case, the wife, the father, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They're the ones that would get to see it. But the wife definitely would be the one that sees it 24/7 and be around it. But normally, the people that we interact with, and the people that are normally around us, are people like Sam.
Exactly.
That shit is crazy. I love it. I love the show even more now.
No, yeah, and I think what's even more crazy too, because I do remember like how, like in the first couple episodes of the first season, because I do want to say, I forget, it was either like Patty or Allison herself says as example, saying like how, oh, like, why don't you just leave? And like she says she can, because like I think at one point she makes a joke saying that if she was to ever, if Kevin was to ever be left alone, then he might not survive, or like he might not make it. And sorry, big ass spoiler alert, but like, no, that's what happens in the end. Like when she also bursts his bubble and brings him down to reality, and you do see that side to him, like he is intimidating, and the fact that when he was about to lose it, and like he does like what, he swipes the counter. Yeah, like, again, it definitely does give you a hint that, like, maybe there was more to that, like, or maybe he did threaten her enough, like, with physical violence, like, oh, like, I could lose it, because in the end, like, when she confirms to him that, no, yes, this is happening, I'm leaving you, we're getting divorced 100%, like, he turns around and tells her that I'm going to make your life a living hell.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, he's threatening her, like, I'm gonna do my absolute worst to you.
Yeah.
And again, like, but he's him by himself alone. He makes a disaster of it to himself to the end that he even brings himself down to death, pretty much.
Yeah, that last scene was that was so jarring, right? It was almost like the first episode when it switched on you, and that you're like, whoa, okay, that's how this last episode was. That jarring, right? When you get pulled. But you know, I feel like Kevin always knew that that's how the world was, but he had this illusion, you know, and then when it finally breaks through, it's horrible, it's ugly, it's scary, you know. It was scary to see something like that. So, but it has the show ended well. I like the way that they left things.
Yeah, too. I liked how it also ended too.
Well, and then because of this show, right, we wanted to kind of know more and dig deeper into this, because it got me thinking, like, you know, this is kind of bringing into light a lot of things. But we were watching these types of shows. Like, we were watching these kinds of sitcoms where the wife was the punching bag, you know, and maybe they didn't show physical violence. And if they would show it as it was into the comedy aspects of it. It was an accident, or, oh, she caused it herself, you know, and maybe we're just too naive to even see it. But then we started talking and how we want to then go back and watch these sitcoms. So we started with Everyone Loves Raymond and The King of Queens. And this inspired us to we're going to do a series on this because, again, I know that a lot of people are going back and they're saying, oh my God, what did we used to watch in this? But I think we should talk about it because if we don't talk about it, if nobody starts talking about it, then it's going to continue. You know, and yes, things are changing. I'd like to think that they're not the same, but yet there are people out there that want it to go back to that. You know, so...
Yeah, and I think those people are the ones who see it through, like, the rose-tinted glasses, like, kind of like Kevin.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think the reason why this new generation and so forth on is, like, changing is because, like, again, it's like the whole, like, what your generation, Mom, taught us, like, my generation and so on forth, to be, like, to do better, be a better person, do better for your kids and your future grandkids and stuff like that. And by doing that, it's like, I think it's like the old saying, like, you can't build a new foundation on a crumbling one. Like, you gotta break it down and start all over.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I said that right or whatever, but I mean, you kind of know what I'm saying. No, yeah, and I think that's what's happening. Like, the more it's broken down, the more you see the cracks, how deeper it is, and how messed up it is. And then you're like, no, like, we all had to fix it, and everyone else like, no, just put a sheet over it or something. It's like, it'll be fine. It's like, no, like, it's like the whole. It definitely is like the whole, like, bullet with the Band-Aid thing. Like, that's not gonna do anything.
Well, so yes, so we're gonna be starting a series on this, and so please, if you guys are enjoying this conversation, join us. Join us on all the platforms. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, S1EP.5 Talking Podcast, and subscribe, like, and I hope you guys join us again. I am Mita, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Musica and Noodles.
Enjoy.
And we're bluntly talking.
Bye.